number 7, C, 6, bracket, 12, 15. This is our bore collector.
Downstairs, so I'd like to call upon Manlekagigyet, Wii Gwinaalth, Henry Green. Tsm'syen Gitando.
Okay, we'll start off with our nation's name. We've been through 4 name changes. The last one, Ksye'en, 10,000 years ago. Ks'goog'm mountain of half winter and half summer. I've been an artist and a carver since 1980. And I've been researching and putting files together since 1982. Part of the Gitando tribe. Gitando also went through 4 name changes. They claim we're the youngest tribe, but that's just a recent name that we re-established. Gitando tribes, clans, peoples, house groups who built and fortified their big houses with asda, the poles that were used for fish traps and fish weirs. Manlekagigyet counselor class are commonly referred to as headsmen. Silgyet, the head of a house group responsible for 36 people. Our hereditary structure had 16 levels on our female and male side. The female side superseded the male side. But since the introduction of paternalism, it's gone the opposite way. The federal government and the court system want to only recognize the male side, and they want to deal with only the men. Waap'm is a physical house group. Waap'm Manlekagigyet Ni'is Yagayunatt, which is has an associated history with Ksye'en, they have the same origins as Ni'is Yagayunatt. So Ni'is Yagayunatt is, Ni'is is short for Ni'es, grandfather, of an elevated name. Yagayunatt originated out of Lax Yuup, way up in the interior at the headwaters. Now they claim they call it the sacred headwaters, and they renamed them. But Ksye'en, bites itself river, changed it to Ksye'en, anglicized all the words. Ks'goog'm, skin of the salmon river, renamed it. They must have met up with Tlingit because the Nass River is actually in the Tlingit dialect. Ks'ye'en, river of mist, juice of the clouds, when the introduction of fishing industry in 1871, when they built the canneries there, 32nd degree ground lodge Freemasons introduced all these words as borough words to introduce their system of commerce. So they legally captured us into their system and legally captured the fisheries into their system at the same time. So they renamed it the Ksye'en River. They took all our hereditary names for all the salmon and put sockeye, which was derived from the Salish language, and chums and spring salmon and cohos. They were all derived from elsewhere, but it was also a kind of an illusionary setup for them to capture it. We're still stuck under their system yet. When I went to court, I had to give testimony for a young Gitlan on his status card. It said Heisla, and his English name was Preston Wilson. When I showed up at the court, the judge still tried to capture me into their system. He referred to me as Mr. Henry Green. I told the judge, I said, Mr. Henry Green is considered Waap'm Ni'is. He said, what's that? I said, it's a baby name, Milk Teeth. Mr. Henry Green has no jurisdiction to speak on behalf of our nation, tribes, clans, host groups, our history, and our laws. And he said, who does? I said, my feasted name. And he said, and what's that? I said, I'm Tsm'syen Gitando, Manlekagigyet Silgyet, Wii Gwinaalth, Waap'm Manlekagigyet Ni'is Yagayunatt, Ganhada. And he said, hang on a sec, can you speak to me like I'm 6 years old and explain everything that you just said to me? So anyways, we spent the whole day in the court system from 9 o'clock till 4:30. They didn't want to continue that court case because all the history I shared. He asked me, how far back can you go in history? I said, well, how far back do you want me to go? DNA evidence supports the fact that Sm'git Ksye'en and Ksye'en, our previous names, date back to 40,000 years, and according to DNA evidence, it supports all that. I've been researching for 14 years now. I've downloaded all the DNA tables and downloaded all our history. And some of our ancestral songs even support all of this. A song that was given over to the Haidas that just returned recently. We were working on a returning the songs project back to the tribes, clans, and house groups. So we've got funding for 3 years, and it seems the way it's going now is we're reaching into a really in-depth knowledge. Eventually what we'd like to do is put a feast together and return all the songs back to the tribes, clans, and house groups, because just about all of them are dispossessed of all of this knowledge now. So I was fortunate enough, when I was born in 1956, as long as Mr. Seaweed's been living in Vancouver here now. My dad was born in 1923. He didn't speak English till he was 17. Also, the Great Depression happened. All the Indian agents, the missionaries, and all the paid people that were suppressing their culture had left the village at the time. So when my dad was born, his grandparents his grandmother adopted him. She was one of the last highest ranking Ksye'en in the village. She had the name Sm'oogit. Her only equal at the time was Sm'oogit Yagayunatt. But fortunately enough, she was knowledgeable enough. She passed away in 1962, born in 1870, that she passed on a lot of this information. My dad never learned to read or write, never spoke English till his grandfather died in 1944, and he was forced to become acculturated. So I was fortunate enough to be raised by him and my grandfathers, my uncles. And for some reason, I guess they realized that I was able to retain a lot of information. They just tell me once or twice a name of a place, a little bit of history about villages or some of the Sm'gigyet. And I was fortunate enough that I had that kind of memory that I could retain all that. So, last generation to go to residential school. I was kidnapped when I was 9. They didn't let me out of the residential school until I was 13. And I went to school, to public schools down here in Comox and Courtenay and Vancouver and then back up to Prince Rupert. One of the fortunate things that happened in residential school was I met an elder, George Cludesy, who reminded me a lot of my way my grandfather spoke. Very articulate in his culture. He was another keeper of knowledge and stories. And so I was just captivated with him growing up here. Reminded me of home. All this researching and studying, and one of the main things that I like to see happen, and I've said this over and over again, all our tribal nations and tribes, clans, and house groups, we need to have an administration to represent us, and we need a protocol agreement that separates the hereditaries from the band council, because all the band councils, treaty societies, all these society act organizations that pretend to mimic us and represent us, we absolutely need to have a protocol agreement to put that all in place so it separates all the roles, rules, and duties. Funding, administration, protocol agreement, and genealogy. Genealogy is going to be of huge importance. Tsm'syen's 1774, before the first wave of disease comes through, ship's logs record our population as 29,536. 1787, 2 ships landed Lax Yuup, a village on the south end of Adaawx. They renamed it Banks Island. They record some of the Sm'gigyet having pockmarks on their face. So our nation's cut in half by then, 15,000. By 1910, when they did the census, a population of used to be 19 tribes, now depopulated down to 9 tribes and 360. Also had, since 1860, they had missionaries and collectors coming in and grasping whatever was left of our regalia, Pte'ex, Ksye'en guns, rattles. 400,000 pieces from the northwest coast made it into museums all over the world from collections. The Dundas collection, which was collected in England, and his great-grandson now possesses it. We're something like $12 to $15 million, I believe. And not only that, we're still in the midst of having our band councils and all these elected systems represent us in the international legal system. It's all under a false pretense. I've been working with Bobois here from Seychelles for a while and been kind of re-educating ourselves into the law system. We need our Ayaawk written down. We need it put to paper. We need support from University of Victoria, West Coast Environmental Law. They have an Indigenous legal program. We need administrative support to reach out and get that funding. Once we put that down on paper, Once we do the genealogy, once we have administrative representation, then we can clear out all this mess that we're involved in right now. There's a lot of individuals reaching in and taking names. There's a lot of individuals doing from father to son transmission of names and titles. The Ksye'en and the Niska speak a similar language. Niska, their laws are called Ayaawk. Ksye'en's called Ayaawk, and Tsm'syen's called Ayaawx. So it's similar dialect, just different dialects to it. Can I have you up here for a minute to speak to this? This is Bobois, we met during the court case with Preston, the Gitland, and he showed up and volunteered his time. So I'd like to introduce him. Bobois from Shishel. His English name is Dave Jeffries.